Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming for the Pre-Health Application Week presentation. Today's presentation is the wow factor. Choose the right pre-health activities for you. Our guest speaker will be Rob Humbracht from Passport Admissions. He'll be telling you a little bit more about that shortly. But before that, I just want to mention that we have a few events left of the series. So today we have Pre-Health Mentorship Matchup. Global Health Living and Learning Communities is running that program. Location is called Cavo Grand Horizon Ballroom. Even if you couldn't register, my understanding is you can still show up if you're interested. So feel free to stop by if you have time. And then tomorrow we have two in-person events, Building a Successful MCAT Study Plan, a courtesy of Kaplan Test Prep, at the noon hour, 12 to 1:30. We're going to be serving pizza. They have tons of swag, gifts, prizes. So if you have time, please join us. And then later in the day at 4 p.m., we're going to start a CPR and first aid class and an ambulance tour courtesy of the UCLA EMS team. Again, food will be involved, and it's a really fun hands-on workshop. You're going to learn basic CPR and first aid techniques on the dummies that they use to teach. So it's quite hands-on and interactive. Both of those workshops will be at the UCLA Career Center, second floor. So room 200, just across the hall from the elevator. So join us, please, if you have the time. And then just a quick overview of Career Center pre-med resources and services. So we have online website, Facebook page, which is currently offline, but hopefully gonna be back online again soon. Counseling workshops, so you can schedule a one-on-one counseling session through your Handshake account. We post new appointments every Friday in the afternoon, usually around 2 p.m. Feel free to go on your Handshake account and see what we have posted and pick the one that works best with your schedule. Pre-health drop-ins happens every Friday, 12 to 1. That's virtual. The counseling sessions, you have options to schedule in person or virtual, but the pre-health drop-ins are only virtual, and you find the link on the pre-health at UCLA website under Career Center. And then we have pre-med pre-health workshops and webinars just like this one that you can register through Handshake. And although the pre-health application week will be ending tomorrow, technically, we will have tons of workshops coming up later in April and May. Like, for example, on April 26th, we're going to have a dentistry jumpstart. We're going to have MCAT, DAT, GRE strategy sessions and presentations. So nursing jumpstart in May, graduate school planning week. So make sure that you keep looking at your Handshake account to see what we have planned for you. Newsletter, recorded workshops. So we have a pre-health newsletter that goes out bi-weekly. Actually, it's going out this Friday. So if you want to sign up for it, all you need to do is select healthcare as your industry interest or preference on Handshake, and you will be receiving it. You can opt out at any time if you don't find it useful. If you do opt in, though, I highly recommend you actually open it, because we also have job opportunities included in there. So it's always very helpful. The recorded workshops, this is going to be one of them, will go on our YouTube channel at some point, and you can watch it and you can share it and you can rewatch and hopefully get even more out of it as you rewatch it. And I think that's all it is for me. Yes. So our guest speaker again is Rob Humbracht, and I will turn it over to him.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. It's good to see you all. I know everybody has their cameras off, but I see a lot of names here. My name is Rob Humbracht. Let me share my screen. One of the beautiful things about a live presentation is the ability to interact with it. So whatever you're doing right now, stop Stop. Listen. Let's chat. So I've got a challenge for you, which is I want you to be the admissions committee. Okay. So you're choosing between two highly qualified candidates, and you can only choose to interview one of them because there's limited interview spots at your school. So you got to pick which one you want. Student A has a 3.8 GPA. Student A has a 517 MCAT. And student A's most notable extracurricular is that she shadowed a surgeon for 6 months. Student B, also a 3.8, very good. Also a 517, very good. And the most notable extracurricular is that student B lobbied the government of Guatemala to implement her club's findings on infant mortality, saving the lives of baby Guatemalans. Now, before you decide, student A did shadowing for 6 months, had her own project and research, was the vice president of a pre-med club, volunteered in a clinic for 200 hours, and even was a TA as an undergrad for 3 biology classes. Student B also did 200 hours in a clinic, was the founder of the Guatemala Club, which at her campus sent students on break to Guatemala to do public health research. As part of that, got in front of the Guatemalan Senate, who was persuaded by her presentation to implement some of her findings, and then raised over $25,000 for the cause. You can only choose one. Get those fingers typing. I want to see in the meeting chat, how many of you guys would choose? Type A if you choose A, B if you choose B. Yeah, let's keep it open to everybody. You don't need to direct message me. Perfect. All right. All right. Charlotte, I see your vote. Emma, Danielle, Madeline, Serena, thank you. Nice. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10. 10 votes, and 100% of them are for B. That's fascinating. So the question is, why? Did student B work harder than student A? Like, type into the chat why you think this is. I don't think it's hard work. They both got excellent grades. They both were heavily involved at their college. Is student B smarter than student A? Doesn't look like it. Anybody have a sense? We're going with uniqueness here. Danielle and Emma, I agree with that. I would say it's more than just uniqueness. So there's something called the failed simulation effect. So this is a term coined by Cal Newport, and the idea here is something that's hard to explain is more impressive than something that is hard to do. It is hard to shadow a surgeon for 6 months while balancing classes and other extracurricular commitments, but it's not hard to explain. Start by finding a surgeon to shadow and show up, right? If you want to lobby the government of Guatemala, what's the first step? Go to Guatemala. Then what, right? It's hard to recreate the events in your head mentally, which makes it seem more impressive. So it's not just that it's an unusual activity, it's that the combination of impact and it's the combination of the impact of the activity makes it so that the reader of your application can't figure out how you did it. So I hope this is a good framing for you as you think about how to make yourself more unique. So howdy, I'm Rob Humbracht. Since 2000, I have been helping people apply, get into medical school. I started as an MCAT tutor. In 2007, I started a company called Passport Admissions. Passport is a private admissions advising company. You all are cordially invited to meet with us for free if you would like. We have been working with mostly California residents, but now we've expanded across the country, and we have a variety of different advisors of different experiences and with different application processes. Our main bread and butter is medical school, but we help with PA school and dental school and you name it in the pre-health spectrum. The second sort of qualification here is I started a blog called The Savvy Pre-Med. If you haven't checked it out, it's the only free med school search tool out there. It's also a blog that's got really useful information, quizzes, interactive videos, you name it. And I also am the CEO of a company called RealDX. RealDX is like the Netflix of patient-doctor interactions, and we provide these videos to medical schools and PA schools and NP schools. So I eat, breathe, live this stuff, medical education related and admissions related. And I'm here to share with you a presentation that I really love doing. I really hope that you will enjoy it too. I think we're going to end by 5 o'clock tonight, and there'll be time for some questions afterwards. But these next 45 minutes will be worth it. So I hope you guys will stick around and really engage. The agenda, we're going to talk about how to build your narrative. We'll talk even about what a narrative is. We'll also talk about how to create what we call a capstone project, or the title of the presentation, Your Wow Factor. And then you get to be the admissions committee. We'll actually choose among 10 different highly qualified candidates and figure out which 5 that you as the admissions committee would choose to interview. And then after that, you guys will have a special invitation. The invitation is right here. Here's the QR code. I will also throw it in the chat. This is the link. You guys are invited to get a free timeline of the application process that you're applying to. You're invited to have a free introductory meeting with us at Passport. It's a 45-minute-ish kind of meeting where we answer your questions about applying, figure out where you have the best shot at getting in, and then figure out what help you need, if any. So I really love meeting with UCLA students. We hope you'll book that meeting. And then finally, you're invited to join the Passport Admissions community. This is a new free learning resource that we've developed. It's called Setting the Curve. And Setting the Curve is here. You will see videos and assignments that will help you learn and grow and be the best version of yourself. So it's really fun. It's passportadmissions.com/community. You have to create a free account, and you will see, you can interact with me and some of the other folks at Passport and see some of the goofy videos. I just can't help looking like a doofus in these screenshots. I don't know what it is, but anyway, that was one of my recent videos that I put up there. Okay, so I'll be the engine, you be the brakes. No question. The only dumb questions are the ones you don't ask. So throw those into the chat as we go, and we'll pause to answer some of them. Let's talk about building your narrative. So your narrative is the story of where you came from, where you headed, and how your values have expressed themselves along the way. And one way of expressing your narrative is through a chart that was originally created by the AAMC, but that I've updated and improved. So at the center of the bullseye of the chart would be your metrics. And as pre-health students, pre-med students, this is where you focus. It's your grades, your MCAT, and then the trend line in your grades primarily. The most boring trend in a GPA is just a flat trend. But a lot of GPAs go up and down. A lot of GPAs go up, some go down. And so there's a story to be told there along with the GPA itself. One way to think about metrics is they prove that you have the ability to get through graduate school and not drop out. So that's fundamentally what they're trying to do. They also serve as bragging rights for medical schools and graduate schools among their peers. Who can get the highest GPA for their incoming class? Who can get the highest MCAT score? But at the center of the bullseye is that. So only if you meet those benchmarks will they then look beyond and look at the rest of what makes you tick. And the rest of what makes you tick could broadly be described as like this inner circle, which has your things like your personality strengths, your ethnicity, your gender, your perspectives, empathy, curiosity, maturity, your core values. It's who are you? And each of you is a little different. Who you are is defined by so many things, genetics, life experiences, your family, your community, things that have happened to you for better or for worse. So who you are is pretty unique. And what you're then trying to connect it to are the experiences that display who you are. Now, not all of these things on this inner circle are equally important to all people. Some people, very much, it matters to them, their empathy, or they might have really important core values. Other people, maybe that's not something that matters to them as much. So on the outside of this circle are your experience. It's almost like the evidence of who you are. So your evidence of readiness, your healthcare experience as described in your essays and your resume, your community service, ditto, leadership, the distance you've traveled in life. So it's the born on third base idea. You know, it's like, have you had every advantage in the world or not as many? It would be your interpersonal skills, your research, your cultural competency. These are the things that you have shown through the choices you've made and the stories that you tell that show that inner circle of who you are. So homework assignment number 1 is look at this slide and identify what are your strengths. What are the things that you have shown? What are the things that you think you would like to show before you apply? And again, it can be a little bit fuzzy figuring that out, but there is plenty of room here for growth. All right, so that's how you build your narrative, is you identify the places you want to go, and you think about how you can meaningfully engage with this along the way. Now, building your narrative is not just a question of doing the average stuff for pre-meds or pre-health students. I really want you to think about, as you're looking at your activities, don't just focus on the quantity of the activity. I know I'm talking to a UC undergrad when they can quote down to the ones digit, the number of hours that they've participated in shadowing or hospital volunteering or whatever. And I'm here to tell you that the number doesn't really matter. A certain amount is a minimum. So you want to have at least 50 to 100 hours of shadowing, but 100 versus 150 versus 200 isn't going to make the difference in whether you get in. You want to have a solid 200 plus hours of clinical work, but 200 versus 300 versus 400 isn't going to make the difference with where you get in. Instead, it's the quality of those experiences. So, did you impact the lives of those that you served? What was your responsibility in the clinic? Did you just answer phones? Did you just give patients directions when they entered the facility? Or were you taking vital signs and interviewing patients, or maybe acting as a phlebotomist and sticking them with a needle? Were you doing meaningful clinical work where you have to connect with people from different walks of life? That's what's determined by the quality. And again, pre-meds and pre-health students get so caught up on the quantity. The second piece of advice is find your underlying motivation. So most pre-meds have these disparate activities. Like, their activities don't just fit neatly into one little box where it's obvious that they all fit together. But what unites them is the thing that gets you most excited about the reasons that you've done these things. So you got to find out what that is. What is it that makes you get out of bed in the morning and take on your busy day? What is it that makes you so excited for the classes in your major? What is it that makes you so excited for your clinical work or your research or your volunteering or your whatever? And if that motivation is because I think I'm supposed to, it's time to find a better motivation. Because if you're just doing something because you think you're supposed to, you're not going to get out of that experience what the schools and the admissions committees want you to get out of that experience. So sometimes you have to just sign up and try things. I get that. And that's okay. It's okay to not know your motivation when you start, but for something that's really going to make you stand out, you got to know why you're doing it, and you got to go hard. Which leads to a corollary, which is advice number 3, which is quit every so often. Quitting feels anathema to many pre-meds and pre-health students. You don't quit. You got to stick this out. You got to get through the weed out classes. You got to hunker down, study hard, work hard. And so you often commit yourself to activities that are insanely time intensive and ultimately not doing very much for your application. The greatest example of this is research, which, listen, if you want to do research for the rest of your life, you need to be involved in research. That's great. If you want that as part of your career, you're going to be applying to schools that value that quality and that want future researchers. But if you don't, you're spending hundreds of hours a year on something that is taking up opportunity space from something else you could be doing that would much better help your application. So give yourself permission to quit. Every so often to me is about, once a quarter, you can really look at as something doing it for you. Or maybe if it's once a quarter is too much, then at least once a year, take a look at the activities that you have committed to. And is the reason you're continuing those inertia? Is it because you think you're supposed to, because you're trying to hit the magical pre-med or pre-health checklist. And if those are the reasons, it's time to quit and find something that really does show who you are in a better way. All right, enough hemming and hawing. Let's talk about the reason you guys are here. How do you actually stand out? Oh, forgive me. The invitation that I invited you guys to, that link, will allow you to download a timeline that looks like this. So what I tried to do is take a massive amount of information and distill it into the most essential steps. So this is what a typical 4-year timeline might look like, starting at year 1. So I don't know where you are in the pre-med or pre-health journey. Many of you are younger probably. And so I wanted to make sure that this was applicable to everyone. But these little emojis that I put in sort of symbolize specific things. So getting involved in volunteering early, getting involved in clinical early, I actually think is really important. That's easier at some schools than others, but you can do this at UCLA. Getting involved in some shadowing. Year 2 is a good time to start research. It's a good time to step up your game. And again, if you're not taking a gap year, the best time to take your MCAT is the end of the summer of year 2. If you do want to take a gap year, then you have a whole nother year to give yourself to take the prerequisite courses and prepare, but also you'll take a gap year at the end, which is actually, I think, a good thing. But anyway, and then if you apply a whole 15 months before you want to start med school or PA school or whatever, generally the applications come out nice and early, and you should apply nice and early. So this is designed for you to be able to fill this in. Again, the courses for MAJ would be the places where you can do your major, and these also overlap with the requirements for most medical schools in terms of the classes that they ask of you. So I hope this will be useful to y'all. Yeah, it's like it's a PDF and a little passport logo on the bottom, and I just want you guys to use it. So I hope it is. All right, so let's talk about how you stand out. And my first piece of advice is you may already stand out. Do I have that as a slide? I do not. So I will never forget the student that came up to me at UCLA. This is a long time ago. I've been doing these presentations for a while, who was really worried that she didn't stand out. And I could see how concerned she was, and sort of said, hey, listen, why don't you meet me afterward? And so she proceeded to tell me her life story over about 15 minutes. And it was incredible. She had immigrated to the United States by herself, leaving alone a single mother whom she sent money to. She worked 3 jobs to put herself through UCLA and send money back home. She had escaped an abusive father, an abusive community, country, culture, and had made her own way to the United States. And if any of that is reminiscent of you, then you don't need to stand out. You already stand out. And so this advice, absolutely, you can still go for it, but you don't necessarily, I just want to make sure that you don't see this as, oh my gosh, this is one more thing I have to do. The methodology I'm about to describe is something that we created at Passport to try to give your average student, defined as whoever feels that way, really, a way of a roadmap for going through the process and standing out. So I hope this will be useful. The term for this is a capstone project. So as the picture shows, it's literally the stone in the top of the arch that holds the rest of it together. Has anybody heard of a capstone project from another part of their pre-med or pre-health journey? I was giving this presentation at UCSD, and somebody raised their hands and said that they were working on a global health capstone project. And that was one I hadn't heard before, but it was something that they had actually started to do as a club, which I thought was super cool. So a capstone project is often in the bioengineering world, and the idea is it's a senior year project that you do that's a culmination of everything that you've learned. So let's make ourselves a pre-med or pre-health capstone project. How do you do it? Well, there's 3 overlapping circles. I love diagrams. So in our Venn diagram, you first find a problem that you want to solve. So this can be something small that you've seen in one of your extracurricular experiences. This can be something bigger. You also need to think about, okay, what are the strengths and resources at my disposal? What am I good at? What do I love doing? Are you good at connecting with people? Are you artistic? Are you very fastidious and have a good attention to detail? Are you good at raising money, whatever it is, those are your strengths. Your resources would be, who do you have access to? Who do you know? Can you get money, say, from your campus government? Can you get money from your club? Can you get manpower or volunteers from your organizations that you're a part of? Those would be resources that you can bring to bear on the problem that you want to solve. And then the last piece is innovate. So you got to do something that's a little bit different. So let's talk about a specific example. So first, by getting involved, there was a student of mine many, many moons ago who joined an organization that fed the homeless at his school. I should say it wasn't at his school, it was at a nearby shelter. And step one was to join. And actually, step two was to get out of his comfort zone, step out from behind the line of serving food, and actually sit down and eat with the people he was serving. Turns out, it's kind of hard to know what to talk about. And that was the first step that he took in trying to really connect with some of the people that he was working with. So he decided he really liked it. He became the president of the organization. And once you're president, that gives you credibility. So that when you try to find a problem to solve, you're not some outsider saying, hey, it's my way or the highway. You're coming in and saying, all right, these are the things that I would like to do. So he started to talk to residents and assess their resources. And then the innovation was, he said, all right, based on what I have at my disposal, I actually have this incredible opportunity to volunteer at a homeless shelter in France. He knew somebody who knew somebody. And so he spent a couple months over a summer volunteering there. It was exciting, that opportunity, but turns out they do things really different in France. So when he came back to his homeless shelter in New Hampshire, he had all of these ideas that he wanted to implement, and they were so successful that they were adopted by every single homeless shelter in the state of New Hampshire. So when he applied to medical school, he was the author of this set of policies that improve the homeless shelter of every homeless shelter in the state. And that's a capstone project. It's something that makes med schools say, wow. So let's talk about possible capstones. All right, this is time for you guys to get involved again. I know, like, let's get these fingers ready to type. We're going to say yes or no to whether these are good capstone projects. So the first is creating a recycling program for your dorm. So the idea would be to, your dorm probably has a recycling program, but the idea would be to help improve it by taking additional types of things. Is this a good capstone project? Yes or no? Who would like to type yes or no into the chat? Let me give you guys a little bit more information as you're thinking this through. I'm seeing a lot of question marks, which means you're working on this. That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad you're struggling with this. So to be a good capstone project, it needs three things. The first is it has to have sufficient scope. Is it solving a big enough problem? The second is, it's got to be a big enough problem. The second is, I might explain that wrong. For the resources is the size of the problem big enough? Second is, does it actually solve a problem? And the final is it innovative enough? And so the answer here is no for this one. Creating a recycling program is something you might do in high school. It might be something that is like a starter here, but it's not something that makes you go, gosh, how did you do that? Now, I mean, if it is, I don't know, you could imagine variations on this. Like, you created the first wastewater testing program for the sewers that come out of your dorm in order to assess the health of those living there. Now you got my attention, right? But that's not this. This is something that's a little bit more mundane. And so because it's not innovative enough, we give it a no. Let's try again. Thank you guys for chiming in. You created a music therapy program at a local hospital. Yes or no? Is that a good capstone project or not? Who says yes? Who says no? Type it on in. All right. Emma, Madeline, Serena, say yes. Rachel says yes. Shreya, all right. You guys are all correct. So it definitely solves a problem. That problem is fairly large. You're working with a whole local hospital, and it is innovative. It's not something that you typically do. This is a real story. Started with somebody who was volunteering at a local hospital, brought their guitar to their volunteering program, and instantly became the most popular volunteer because every patient and even every provider wanted them to play for their patients. So realized that this was a big need at the hospital and started a program to pair musicians at their college with that hospital. How cool is that? All right, master polyphasic sleep. Well, you guys probably don't know what polyphasic sleep. Polyphasic sleep is where every 3 hours you sleep for 20 minutes. If you do this well, you can feel as rested as if you had had 8 hours of continuous sleep at night. But if you do some math, 3 hours, there's 8 of those in a day. So 8 times 20 is 160 minutes, which means you're only sleeping for a little bit less than 3 total hours, and yet squeezing an extra 5 hours plus of productivity out of your day. Is that a good capstone project? Certainly would be a useful skill. Yes or no? I'm seeing a lot of no's here. It does solve a problem. It's certainly innovative. The problem is it's just you. And so if it's just you, it's probably not a sufficiently large impact on other people or the community to make this worth your while. So, all right, let's put it all together. And what I would like us to do is to go into some breakout rooms. We're going to assign folks to breakout rooms. We're going to have about, let's see here. I see 17 of you. One person just dropped. They said, "The heck with this." All right, 16 of you. We're gonna break into 3 breakout rooms, okay? And so I want you to go there, unmute yourself, and decide on the following applicants. You might need to take a screenshot of this when we're done. So let's do this right now. I want you guys to take out some notes and just be able to try to jot down some of this stuff. So we're going to find out 3 things about a given student. Thing number 1 is their GPA. And so we're boiling admissions down to just the fundamentals. Obviously, everybody here is much more than just this on the piece of paper. There's letters of recommendation and a list of every class that you've ever taken since high school and your grades in those classes and several different essays. But at the end of the day, admissions is fundamentally about getting the highest average GPA for the incoming class. Second is giving as many people with a status as possible. So there's 2 basic statuses we're concerned with here. The first is, are you from an underserved community? And so I use that language on purpose because it varies depending on the med school and what they're looking for. For some med schools, they're specifically looking for doctors who want to serve in underserved urban areas. Others are looking for underserved rural areas. Others might be trying to serve a specific community, such as Native Americans or whoever. So you're trying to maximize, though, in general, the status of your class. And then finally, you're trying to put together a distinct class made out of people who are interesting, and so that the environment is challenging and you can learn from each other. So the distinction of student 1 is that they have a helicopters pilot license. So 3.9 GPA, which is the highest for this exercise. Their status is they're underserved, and they have a helicopter pilot's license. Student 2, 3.7 GPA, also from an underserved community. The most distinct thing about them is they helped their grandmother through cancer and recovery. Student 3, 3.3 GPA, also underserved, and their distinction is that they worked as a nurse for 9 years before applying to medical school, is the final point there. Student 4 has a 3.9 GPA. Their status is not underserved, it's almost the opposite. Their grandfather donated a building to your medical school. So you're trying to let people like that in, if you can help it, because med school buildings are good. They provide more opportunities for other people. You don't want to shut off that money faucet, right? So it's an institutional benefit to let somebody like this in. You don't have to. Again, admissions officers are people. They can choose what they want to do, but there's some pressure there for sure. The most distinctive thing that this person did, though, was they were the vice president of a pre-health organization. Student 5, 3.5 GPA. They're the son of a med school professor at your school. And the most distinct thing is that they were a double major in psychology and biology, which, by the way, are the two most common majors in applying to med school and graduate school. Student 6. So no status with anybody on the right side here. 3.9 GPA. The most distinct thing about them was they spent 2 years in the Peace Corps in Madagascar teaching nutrition and health. Student 7. 3.9 GPA. The most distinct thing is that they speak 3 languages fluently: Spanish, English, and Hindi. Student 8. 3.7 GPA. The most distinct thing is they immigrated to the US from Taiwan with their family at age 8. Student 9. 3.5 GPA. There is no status, but they were a 4-year starting punter on a Division I football team. So on, say, the UCLA football team, they were the starting punter while being pre-med. Student 10, 3.3 GPA, and the most distinct thing is that they were the first author on a published research paper. So here are the rules. You can only interview 5 of these folks, 5 of them. And so when I divide you into the breakout rooms, I want you to talk it over with your breakout mates and decide which 5 that you would likely interview. All right. Breakout rooms happen now. We'll do 2 breakout rooms, and I'll hop between to make sure that everybody is doing well. Here we go. Looks like they are debating which ones to use. So that's great. We'll call them back in about 5 minutes, Christina.
Okay. Nice to be interactive.
Let's see, experiment. All right, welcome back. So we have our 10 candidates. Would somebody from each group put the 5 that you've chosen into the chat? We have a small sample size here, just 2 admissions committees. We'll see where they overlap and where they don't. All right. So it looks like room 2 said 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then room 1 said 3, 6, 4, and then chaos. All right. Let's talk about then what you guys liked about these folks. So it looks like both groups agreed on 3. So what was it about working as a nurse for 9 years that was persuasive to you all? Type it in the chat. You can unmute yourself, your choice. Yeah. I agree with that. Experience. That's the common thread there in your comments. I love that. Yeah, all of these students are based on real former students. I tweaked some of the numbers to make this exercise be a little bit harder. But this was a real former student. And wouldn't you want that student to be in your mid school class? Because, whoa, the stories they can tell. All right. So, okay, we like 3. Both groups like 4. I think that's for obvious reasons. I mentioned 4 not because I'm trying to make you, like, it's not prescriptive. I'm not suggesting if you have a grandfather, they should donate a building to the school. I'm saying there are factors out there beyond what you can control. And there's just candidates out there that get in for reasons that are mystifying and that you'll never know in 100 years. So trying to figure out why certain people got in and certain people didn't is pointless because you just don't know. It's not a large chunk of the applicant pool who have these direct ties that get in because of it, but it does exist. And so you guys were correct as the admissions office to accept that person. And some push comes to shove, I included candidate 5 here because sometimes I get asked that question like, oh, our neighbor's friend works at the med school. Will that help us get in? And the answer is, not really. Not when there's other people with better ties. Anyway, we all like student 6. Tell me why you guys like student 6. What was distinctive about student 6? Our candidate who spent 2 years in the Peace Corps in Madagascar. What was it that you thought, oh yeah, this person deserves an interview? Like the unique experience, dedication, Danielle. I agree. Sure, global health perspective. You know, that global health perspective is going to be more important to some med schools than others, but even that experience will be cool to share with your classmates. It is sort of like a capstone project, and actually, you know, it is a very intense option. But anybody here could join the Peace Corps. I mean, you know, within reason, I suppose. But it does make the logistics of taking the MCAT and applying very, very, very difficult. But you can do it, and there's more tame options. You know, had students join different intensive service programs like that. Like, so one went and lived in a home for foster youth, like lived there, and it was on her and 4 other college students, recent college grads, to raise something like 8 kids, all under the age of 6. And so they were responsible for everything except the finances. They had to bathe them, change their diapers, feed them, raise them, you know, school them. And it was a great experience. So anyway, I think 6 is a good example of really going all in on something that makes you distinct. All right. So then we were of mixed opinion. It looks like group 1 liked 2. Sounds like you guys were persuaded by the helping grandmother through the cancer and recovery. And I agree with 2. I think 2 is, there's a lot of people that write in their personal statements about a sick relative. In fact, it's a kind of a cliche. And usually the story says something like, my relative fell sick, everybody was very sad. It really made me realize how precious life is. And how medicine can help restore quality of life. And that's why I want to be a doctor or whatever. But this person in 2 not just had that feeling, They were there. They were helping with the medication, going to doctor's appointments and taking care of the grandmother. That's the distinct thing. And that's a really compelling experience. Let's see. We haven't touched on too many of these other ones. So I really like student one. If they're from an underserved community and have a 3.9, they're going to get in regardless. That's two very valuable things in today's what we're hoping for today's doctors. Student 7 is pretty good. Being fluent in 3 languages is good. The average student applying to med school is fluent in about 2. So, maybe 1.5, 1 3/4. So 3 is a slightly distinct, but not so amazingly distinct that they're gonna, that's the way to get in. Poor student 8 often gets left out just because there's not enough that's distinct about them. There's nothing wrong with student 8. Student 8 would make a perfectly serviceable doctor probably, but there's just nothing that's distinct enough. And then 9, I really like people who show tremendous dedication to art, music, dance. If you are competitive at the national level, medical schools love that, and they'll eat that up, and they'll give you a pass on slightly lower grades because it's such a high bar to clear for both of these things. And then the person who published their own research paper as first author, incredibly impressive to research-oriented schools. So a school that's not as research-oriented probably wouldn't even consider that. But if your school is, they would be pretty compelling. Any questions? I guess my question to you is, what did you learn from this experience of trying to pick which 5 of the 10 would get in? Type in the chat if you would. I just want to know what you guys got out of this. Did you learn something about yourself, about the applicant pool, about what it's like to be an admissions officer? All right. I like Emma's comment. There isn't just one way to get in. That's true. That's true. There's a lot of different ways. Shreya, I like it. A combination of things, a combination of grades and experiences. Ooh, Madeline, that's depressing. Most people are qualified. It's true. It's hard to, there's not clear stats on this. They just don't get released, but most people have pretty good grades, at least. Most people have a pretty good MCAT score or pretty good test scores, at least. Most people have at least some of the different experiences that you need. And so that's probably not enough to get in. Which can be intimidating, but also I think it is an opportunity for you all to really dig deep. Find the thing that makes you distinct. All right. Well, I hope that was useful. To finish up here, and then I'll take some questions. Again, you guys are cordially invited to download a timeline. It's not just pre-med, there's pre-other things there too. To book a free introductory meeting. You might even be able to meet with me if you'd like. If you follow that link, and then you're also cordially invited to join our community if you'd like to interact with me more and see some of the videos and content we put out in the world. Please join us. So it's just passportadmissions.com/you're invited. All righty, that is the conclusion of my scheduled comments. You guys are welcome to stick around to ask me questions one-on-one or as a small group. If you need to go because you're busy, I totally understand. I think now would be a good time to probably stop the recording.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I'm going to stop the recording.